Welcome to the Action Shooting Show. Tonight we have Mike Ford with us as always, and then Sean Murphy has agreed to join us here. We're going to do a quick after action on the Riverbend Gun Club Run and Gun. So that's out of Georgia, and again, the Riverbend Gun Club. And before we get started, as I kind of always say, kind of like and subscribe if you enjoy watching this, share it with your friends, and kind of help spread the word of action shooting sports, and in this case, run and gun. So, Sean, do you want to give us just a quick background on yourself, just if people haven't seen you on here or don't know who you are?
Sure. So currently I do work in the industry, director of sales and marketing at KGM, do suppressors is what most people know us for. We do some other stuff in the background. I've been in the industry for 12, 13 years or so now, doing different stuff. I was at Night Force for a long time. A lot of people knew me as the Night Force guy. Yeah, I mean, I got into the industry from competitive shooting. And ironically enough, Riverbend Gun Club, where we just shot this run and gun, was one of the first places I started shooting at. So I've been competitively shooting since I was like 18. Riverbend Gun Club, when they did their very first iteration of this match, Bruce Perry, who started it, he was the old match director when I started shooting, and he reached out. He's like, "Hey, I think we got this new thing. I think you'd like it." I was working at Night Force. He wanted to sponsor the match and checked it out, and been hooked since. So I do, the run and gun stuff. This was kind of my return after about 2-year hiatus with kids in school, work, everything else, new baby. And, but I also do other stuff. I shot pistol for a long time, 3-gun, long range stuff. I do a lot of long range team stuff. Got into doing some long range training for some mill guys and stuff on the side as well. So basically, if it goes bang, I'm interested in it and like to do it. I'm fortunate I get to do it for fun and I get to do it for work. So.
Yeah, and people may, I mean, if I'm correct, if it's a team match and you and your partner show up, you guys are still kind of the people to beat most of the time, correct? I mean,
I can't remember. We actually kind of lost track. We've shot 30 something matches together, and I think we've not taken first at 5 of them. So it's kind of weird. Like most people, like, how many of you won? Like, really, we do it for fun. He lives in Montana, so my partner Greg works for Proof Research. It kind of got together by happen chance, last minute. He had a partner couldn't make another match, and we took second at that. Had a ton of fun together, and kind of became BFFs since then. Our kind of joking name is Unhealthy Bromance. Our wives accuse each other of sometimes talking more to each other than we talk to them. But we've had a lot of fun adventures together. We've got a pretty good, probably make a funny like 80s buddy cop movie, kind of some of the banter back and forth. But for the most part, we do have a good time. And I think that having a good time, we don't take it too seriously, even though sometimes there's a big bullseye on our back. And our number one rule is have fun and sometimes learn something. But
Yeah, awesome. And that's, I mean, when you have anyone that shot a team match, you can have two great shooters, and if they don't click, it's you're still going to put a good showing, but you really do have to have a good chemistry.
Yeah, it's interesting, and some of the because of we've been fortunate to do well in that stuff. It has led to some training opportunities, and so we get to see all kinds of pairings and mix-ups, and a lot of what we do is try and stress that team or find ways to make them work better, or create adverse conditions, or find subtle nuances that they kind of pick them apart to give them those failure modes to learn from. So it is interesting to see how people handle stuff, and you have world-class guys that sometimes if they're not getting along, or no, I know better, and then they end up having the wings fall off, and then and say the same thing to two people that are average shooters, but I think of this, this works out, and then they just crush it because they're like, well, you're good at this and you're good at this, or I'm good at this, and so let's come up with a plan, let's do it. They do it well, and they do really well at it. So it's pretty fun to get to see a lot of that stuff, because the team dynamic is as important as the individuals as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, well, we'll get into this. So, I guess first off, gear used, gear needed for this match. Is there anything, I mean, I think this is kind of your standard run and gun. What did you use? Is there anything special that you think people should bring, or you would have, you
Sure.
brought, or maybe you wish you would have?
Yeah, so this one was a 5K this year, or 5-ish K. It was about 4.25 miles, which they told us ahead of time it was closer to 4 miles than a true 5K. When it started, it was a 5K, and then they kind of did like a 10K where you ran it twice, and then this year they actually totally changed the course, because in the past it was you kind of ran the roads of the gun club between the ranges, and it was a good course. This year they really, you went behind stuff, you went in woods, as they said. People that have been longtime members have probably never seen parts of the club before, and they found a lot of challenging terrain, a couple big hills, both off-road and on-road, a little bit of swamp walking. So, from a length perspective, it wasn't like it was a ridiculous amount. 6 stages. I think they said it was like 50 something pistol, 50 something rifle. They did say it would be one of their harder matches, both in the history of the matches there, difficulty in shooting and in the running side. For me, I have a pretty standard running gun carbine. I think in like my notes, I even call it my running gun. Nothing too crazy. I've done a few different pieces, I think, online before, but just a 16-inch AR. I run a proof intermediate gas carbon barrel, a little bit lighter on the barrel. Night Force 1-8 with FCDMX in it. So something that not too long, not too short on the barrel. We get good velocity, running 73 ELDs from Hornady. So something that I feel comfortable. They advertised it went out to 600. Those, I've shot those projectiles much further than that. Like, they just work. I've used them for a long time. And that this kind of combo of a setup, I know the holds, I know the drops, I know, I'm just real confident with it. And, nothing crazy. I started shooting running guns. I had what was an ESS pad, now the RNG Tactic. So I've got one of his new ones. When I rebuild the gun, I put that on. And now, since I work for a suppressor company, I've usually shot running guns with a muzzle brake, being more from that 3-gun mindset in the past of, yes, there is a, shot-to-shot follow-up with a muzzle brake, but figure if I work for a suppressor company, I should probably run it suppressed. So I put one of our titanium cans on it. So lighter weight, knowing, hey, we're not dumping mag after mag on a stage. And so kept the weight down, but in running gun, you do get some of those odd positions where, in this particular match, in one of the stages we'll talk about, they have a box you got to stick the gun in, or barricades, and you're kind of blasting yourself. Definitely from a team match perspective, run everything suppressed, but solo, I've always run muzzle brake. This time ran a can, and I was actually very happy with how it went. Not just because I work at a suppressor company, but I know the benefits of it. I was like, yeah, we'll see. At this point, I've shot so much, I don't think that a muzzle brake would have made any difference on how I did or not. So there's that. But yeah, so the rifle, kind of my standard running gun, kind of do anything carbine. Like, people say, oh, it's your end of the world gun. Some people treat running guns like that. For me, yeah, this is pretty much my, close range, long range. I'll do kind of anything with it. Shot my 2011 Staccato. I think, Ryan, you and I have talked about other matches. Just ran that with an acro on it. Being that it's a running gun, closed emitter, kind of works nicely. A couple years ago at Legion, I took a spill in some water, and it was pretty rough. That gun was iron sights then. Now it's a red dot, but not because of that. And from a chest rig, I've always liked the Hill People gear stuff, but this one, I've had one of the Haley micro rigs with a flat pack on it. So I was like, yeah, I'll give it a try. I haven't, used it in a long time. I didn't really expect mud crawls or anything too crazy. I wasn't really worried about losing the mags. So ran that and was real happy with the setup, and a normal kind of your battle belt, 2 mags for each pistol and rifle, and the pistol on it. And pretty straightforward. Did bring a little bit of water. Not knowing, right now, springtime down here, it got pretty warm towards the day. So just a kind of light, be on the course for an hour or two setup. I did bring a little extra ammo based on what they said. My last name being Murphy, I do sometimes worry about losing a mag. So I'll okay, they said 56 rounds of rifle. I brought, whatever double-ish that would have been, a couple 30-round mags. And I like running a 20 as a spare, so it's not hitting my kidney as I run. And then I always in that flat pack, I put an extra mag of both pistol and rifle. just one of those, you get on a stage, you go to do a reload and you forget, or just run along obstacles, something like that, and you lose a mag. For me, it's like, it's a half pound extra. I'll bring it for insurance, because I've always been a little paranoid of like getting all the way to the end and be like, I'm out of bullets. That really sucks. So.
And as ROs of our last stages, I've seen that multiple times. People show up and it's all pistol, and they've had no pistol ammo for the last 2 stages. So yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I finished a match with like way extra ammo more than I needed, and it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
And I've also finished with like what's left of a mag, and that's not a real comfortable feeling, making every shot count.
Having to strip all your mags and consolidate into one. A guy one time told me that the only time you have too much ammo is when you're on fire or drowning. I was like, well, he's not wrong.
Yep. Which could be, Mike has almost been on fire at Legion, and they try to drown us at Guardian every year.
Yeah, true.
So, all right, yeah, I'm on board with the suppressors in the run and gun. I know some people don't like them, I guess, because of the weight or the making it longer, but I think, especially if there's long range at it, calling hits on someone shooting a can is so much easier than getting blasted by a 3-port break, and then I'm trying to hear that and process it. And
sometimes hearing the report on steel, especially if the Mirage is up in the middle of the day or something like that, I think a lot of people, just competitive in general, ignore the RO, and like, instead of treating it like, hey, the RO is on your team. If you think of it that way, like, listen to what they have to say. Generally speaking, it's people not looking to screw you. They're trying to help you. Like, if they're trying to call accurately, or, if you let them know, hey, I'm going left instead of right, because everybody else may have been going right and you didn't know that, and now they're caught unaware, and now they're not focusing on what you're doing. Or, like you said, the blasting with the muzzle device is like, they're blinking every time and not seeing it. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we got pretty concussed last year at Legion. 3 days of muzzle breaks in kind of an enclosed area, so we're kind of over that. Mike, you got anything to add before we move on here?
No. Just listen to the way he set up his kit. It's really similar to kind of what we've been doing, and I'd say if it works, then folks take note. The can thing, definitely. When I got cans, I started running cans all the time, and then kind of hit some issues like I did at my last match, where I had to have a reshoot because the person didn't get the time. So I played a little bit around with my cans to figure out like what's my impact shift going can on, can off. And so for some of those long range stages and stuff where calling hits is a little bit more difficult, I'll actually shoot it with a can, and then I'll QD that can off, and like all the Bay action VTAC stuff, I'll just pull the can off and run muzzle brake just to try to lessen the odds of having a reshoot. But clearly that's gun, shooter, ammo dependent to make sure that that'll actually work. But yeah, I mean, it's been a great conversation so far. I don't really have anything to add.
All right, good deal. We kind of hit the distance divisions. Was there any specific divisions on this match or anything like that?
They did a light and a heavy. I think 5 or 6 brave guys ran heavy. I think it was a 35-pound pack on top of that. But I would say the other 100 people shot light. But it wasn't a bad course. I mean, there was a couple of spots that it would have, an extra 35 pounds weighing you down wouldn't have been fun. But overall, like thinking back, I mean, I've run, I try and do like every other week or every week, do some kind of couple mile with a backpack kind of thing, and do 35 pounds. Like, it wouldn't have been bad on the course, all things considered. So hats off to the guys that ran heavy, but, good for wasn't for me.
That's not you. Well, yeah, because it's 35, and then your gun is
standard.
Yeah, your gun is 8-10 pounds. Your pistol, and then it definitely adds up quick. Yeah. So, okay. And then flavor, I mean, it's just I guess your traditional run and gun, right? Nothing.
I will say they did a really good job of, you had a close and fast stage. I'm sure we're getting all the stages. They had a long distance marksmanship. They had, transition between two different guns, different manipulations. Like, it was one of the more well-balanced. I think I've done 12 or 13 running guns. One of the more well-balanced of covering skill sets across 6 stages. And the Riverbend, it's a really nice gun club. Like, it's like a country club for guns in kind of the North Atlanta area. And they used the long range appropriately. They had some pistol bays that, like, they did a good job with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do love a well-balanced, no matter what, run and gun, 3-gun, it doesn't matter. When they test every skill, or as many of the skills as they can for the guns you're using, I think that's great. That usually makes a really solid match. So, well, let's get into it then. If you want to start walking through the match, maybe going through some stages, whatever you feel like talking about.
Yeah, so I had an earlier start time. I think it was 8:48 launch. I think the first runner went out at 8. They, man, I should have wrote down all the distances between stages. It was a decent little run. So you kind of went up this hill on a power line and dropped down into a bunch of woods and kind of navigated between a bunch of the ranges. Like, you didn't see them, but if you've ever been on the club, you kind of know, oh, some are over here, some are here. And you're like running up this like draw that heavily wooded and kind of rugged terrain. So it's actually a nice start to it, because you didn't feel like you had to run super hard. You kind of felt more like, Mel Gibson in The Patriot, running through the woods, that kind of running with a gun. Like, that's kind of like, okay, I can dig this. This is fun. And so got into it, little hill right at the end onto their long range. So Riverbend, their longest range is 600 yards, and it's a traditional high power range. So you pop out of the woods right at the 300-yard berm. Had a little bit of wait time stacked up there right away, so I popped right into a couple guys. And it was a good stage where you started on, if say the berm was, I don't know, 75 yards across, 100 yards, something like that. You started on one side, you picked up a kettlebell, maybe a 20-pounder, and you ran all the way to the other. Like, clock starts, pick up the kettlebell, run. At a box where you put the kettlebell in, and at about 100 yards down in the bottom of like the 200-yard berm, they had 2 steel targets. You had to left shoulder and right shoulder on just one of the targets get 2 hits. So 2 hits right shoulder, 2 hits left. Put on safe, run, I don't know, 10 yards, 15 yards to a tank trap. They had 2 taped sections, so one low, one high, and you had to hit 1 each on those steel plates that are low. Didn't freestyle, and then they had a plate at 300. The plates at 100, like a half IPSC, so not too small, not too like oversized. And then at 300, I think it was like a BC zone, so like a C zone but real tall, which I think for that kind of shooting is about perfect. Like the target selection they made on the match, I thought was really good. So smack that at 300, so 1-1, and then 1 at 3. Move to the other spot on the tank trap, do it again, and then you moved like 5 yards and went down prone and did the exact same thing. And that was the stage. So the targets at 100 were far enough away where you had some transition. It wasn't like they were next to each other. And then at 300, you just have your holdover, and it was fairly straightforward. 60-ish seconds, I think, for my run on it. That was a stage win on that. I think a lot of guys were in the 80, 90, 100-second range, which for me, I ran into it at about 2x when I started, which for that kind of shooting I like on that standing offhand. That 300, it was a little less, so I ended up cranking up to 4 or 5 power and just stayed on that for the rest of the time, just kind of knowing, as I got into the position, got on target, and then knew I just had to transition right there. It was look up, put the gun on it, and I was already in the field of view to make my hold. So it was pretty straightforward, but it was a good transition, both close, lateral and then at distance. So it was, like I said, pretty straightforward. So from there, picked up your stuff, ran down the hill around, and then you had a little bit of a hill climb, nothing too crazy at stage 2, which for those that have shot the match over I guess really any of them, there's an infamous box that Bruce had dreamed up. It's probably, 3-4-ish feet wide and maybe 3-ish feet tall. And something rectangular to kind of draw it. But so actually, let's see here.
It's his malfunction box, right?
It's his malfunction box. So if this is for the box, you had a slit here, a slit up top, a slit on the side, and on the other side, and they were oriented like tall, and side. So you had to purposely, tuck up against it to shoot it. And so from there, you had to get 2 hits on a 7,500-ish yard plate from each of those positions. So you ran up 10, 15 yards, loaded the gun, shot that. I went low with the ejection port up, 2 hits right away, went immediately to the right, put it in the hole and pulled it to the left side. So it was designed so that with the carbine, you were right here, right, the edge of the box. So if you're married right into it, you're going to get malfunctions because that brass doesn't have a chance to leave the gun. Got those hits straightforward. And then probably my only bobble I felt unforced error, if you will, was on top. I went still ejection port up, kind of resting on my shoulder, but I didn't stick it in far enough. And so I was resting on the can, and with a sling on the front of the gun, I thought I had it further in than I did, and so I was resting on the can. I was like, cook a shot, that felt good, and then I didn't really see it. The shot broke, and I felt good, and I cooked another. I saw it was high. I was like, kind of just P-brain went into hold lower, and got the hits, and then I went to the left side. Had to switch shoulders because they had you stay within the confines of the box. And same thing happened. Went up and I was like, that's weird. And then I realized oh, must be sitting on the can. So I went back and held low right from where I was hitting, got those hits. And then you ran 30-ish yards. They had a barrel. You got to hit each, on the targets down there. And then you ran to about, I don't know what it was, 25-ish yards from a single pistol target where you loaded your pistol, and you had to get 8 hits on it. So it was a lot of running, multiple positions, changing guns. I think I was in the high 70s for the time on that. That was another stage win. There's a couple other guys closer on that, but I definitely had the lesson learned of make sure the gun is in further, because I was it's in kind of what it felt like in the past, which running a muzzle brake, you're not really thinking, you're not resting on that. The handguard's on it. So, but when in doubt, bullet's not lying to you. So, I'm hitting high, hold low, and correct for it, make the hits, and then figure it out later. So that was stage 2. But that was a fun one. The poor ROs, they had quite the wind sprint all day on that one. Stage 3, you made your way a little bit longer run past some of their shotgun areas to their silhouette range, so their other longer range, which they run their one-day PRS stuff at. And there was, I think they even called it PRS or something like that for the stage. So you run up into it, didn't have any wait time on it, so rolled straight in, and or maybe had a minute or something while the other guy was finishing up, and rolled into it. They had a set of stairs with maybe 5 stairs that, in PRS, you might shoot through the stairs. Didn't require anything other than you had to be on the stairs. And then about 10 yards to the left, you had a simulated rooftop, fairly shallow, nothing too crazy. Not quite enough for if you had a bipod, you'd get kind of uncomfortably high on the rear. And then targetry wise, at 200, they had a pair of C zones. At 300, they had a pair of C zones. And then at 525, I think they were full size IPSCs, but they were a little bit bigger silhouettes. And so from the stairs, you left to right, hit it 200 each, 300 each, 525 or whatever it was, meters, I think is on that one. And then you ran and then moved to the rooftop and repeated the order. So not too bad on that one. I started a little too low on magnification on that back one. I was like, why am I struggling to see this? Like quickly and then zoom back in. Needed a little bit of winds. Luckily, where the targets were at, there's a nice sandy bank. So if you missed, you could kind of see if you were left or right. I missed a little left, and the dust was drifting kind of right to left. So like, oh, hold right, duh. So it's pretty straightforward. That was one though where the mirage was already coming up because the sun was coming up. So definitely trying to see your splash, listen for the impact. That definitely helped. The run and suppress was definitely easier to hear the hits. So that was a pretty fun one. I think I was in the mid 50s on that. I think some guys in the 60s as well. So that kind of mid-range stuff is really my wheelhouse. So I enjoy those kind of stages. I think some people don't like it, but to me, that's like pure rifle shooting right there. A couple 100 yards on appropriate, like torso-sized targets. Like that's good stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah, and so for like us up north here, it's hard to find a range that goes much past 200 or 300. So while we are lucky to have some places to do that, most people aren't. So, and here in Ohio, if you miss, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, if you miss, you're just going into grass, overgrown grass or something like that. So if you don't see trace, you're kind of out of luck. But I do enjoy those stages as well. And like you said, with reasonable size carbine, if this was a bolt gun match, you can get a lot smaller with targets. For what we do in run and gun, you start getting too much smaller than that C zone or BC. It gets rough, especially if the weather's not kind.
Yeah, I mean, it's match setup's always tough. You want to make it hard enough for the better shooters, but not too hard that everybody DNFs it. And so, target size is one of those things that I think, oh man, I'll make it this. They should be able to do that. It's like, well, they're tired. It's a weird position. They're not off a bipod, like all these weird things. And so, I thought it was pretty well balanced, like you said, for the target size. Yeah, if you're shooting a big PRS gun, like, you should be taking headshots on everything at what that was offering. But no, it was good. And what's nice too with appropriately sized targets, you don't have to have perfect data for that, like close enough, kind of knowing what your holds roughly are. There's some, I don't think I have it painted on this gun, but, it's a whole other topic in and of itself on kind of managing your data. But for me, it was, I've got kind of a little rule, the way it's sighted in, base scout's 200, it's on a little high at 100 if you have a weird thing, but from about 300 to 600 for me, I've got it where the distance minus the yards. So like if it's 400 yards, make that like a 4. So 400 and then minus a 2. So basically you make your dope out, look at kind of see if there's a relation. And so it's like kind of a rule of thumb, if you will. And you can even tweak your 0 a little bit at 100, like maybe go a little high. And so from 200 to about 600, it's my other gun, this one's got a new scope on it, has D-2 on the turret. So distance -2. So 400 is 2 mils. If it's 300, 1 mil or something like that, or it's 450, 2.5. So like I can quickly know what that is without necessarily having to reference it. But so yeah, it's like I said, for that stuff on those size targets, some of those rule of thumb type games, there's some different, you don't need to be a full-on sniper and memorize your data, but it does reward somebody that kind of has it roughly figured out. Even if it's not truly perfect, it gets you in the ballpark.
Well, and for those targets, I know Mike's going to love this. The ACOG, most of those reticles, like for what you do in run and gun, that's a pretty solid choice. If you don't want to learn things, if you just want to, as long as you figure out whatever bullet you're shooting does hit pretty close to that, you could make a lot of good hits with just a pretty simple reticle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's, in the pure precision world, BDC is like, oh, that won't work because there's so many variables, but close enough, good enough for kind of run and gun, 3-gun carbine stuff. Like it is a thing. So, yeah. So after that stage, I don't quite remember where we're at in the miles. They did tell you in the brief there was a long run from 3 to 4, and it definitely was quite a haul. They did say at the brief that there was an Easter egg along the way that you had to get and bring to stage 4. Otherwise, you had to go back and get it. What you don't know is where it's at. And, you could kind of think, oh, maybe it's buried in the woods when they take you in the woods, or maybe it's here, maybe it's there. So you kind of run out past some of their 5 stand at the club. You run down a hill through some woods, kind of pass through the swampy creek area. At that point, Jimmy Nutt was out taking pictures, and I was kind of BSing with him as I'm kind of going through this creek area. And so then there's this big hill, and he's like, see you at the top, sucker, kind of thing. And as he goes up on his 4-wheeler to take pictures of me panting and being miserable. And so I start the hill, and he turns the corner. I'm like, oh crap, this is a big hill. And it's like, I did not look very hard at that kind of swampy area, thinking that would have been a good spot to put a, basket. They did tell you it was like a Easter basket of eggs. And so I actually backtracked, and probably burned, 4 minutes in total. Like, I remember things like, I can either go up this hill now and think and have some doubt of, man, if I get all the way to the top of that hill and I have to go all the way back and find it, I'm going to be really pissed. So I actually turned around before I went up the hill, because it was only maybe 50, 60 yards back, and kind of walk back along the bank real quick, make sure I didn't see anything, and then turn around and start going up the hill. And sure enough, Jimmy was sitting at the top of the hill at the basket, taking pictures of me stuck all the way up the hill. And he's like, yeah, they were wanting to make sure that you actually went up the hill and didn't cheat the course a little bit. So you go all the way up this hill to literally get this egg, and then you go right back down the hill to go, and you go down, and you go through, and even like a creek, like walk through in the water, which actually felt good by that point. And you go out this long field, down in kind of the bottom area by the river, and just keep going, cut across the field. And they had a 5-foot wall, 6-foot wall, which wasn't too bad because they had the little climbing cleats on it. Hop over that, cross the road in the gun club, and then takes you into their action pistol complex. And so you're right there into stage 4. So a lot of movement to get there. They're waving me to come up, and that was one okay, I'm going to walk up, because I didn't know if I was wait time. You couldn't see if anybody was standing there or not. There was a guy there, so I ended up having a few minutes to kind of catch my breath a little bit, because it was a bit of a hike when you're trying to move on flat ground after that big hill. You don't really get a chance to slow down. So that was the big part of the run at that point. Stage 4 and 5 were next to each other. So you shot 4, and then the idea was it was a smoke fest on your legs, and then you go into 5, which was also a wind sprint stage. So stage 4 was actually quite fun. It was very simple in what they demanded, but it was just a technical exercise. So you started about 10 yards. They had a pair of 55-gallon drum barrels, and they had them set at 10, 15, 20, 25 yards. And they had a sled with, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 pounds, something like that on it. And so they had a single torso, half IPSC or something. And on the buzzer, draw, get 2 hits on it, reholster, and drag. You got to keep your body facing downrange, probably from the loaded gun, and basically, run to the next set of barrels. So 5 yards, draw again, 2 more hits, reholster, move back. And so you do that 7 times. So keep moving back, and then you start moving back forward. I don't remember what my time was on that one, but that was just hustling. I didn't when I looked at it, I was like, do I drop the strap? Do I not? But I ended up going freestyle on it. But as I was moving, I did just drag it with one hand. So I had my hand already on my pistol. So as soon as I got to the line that I needed to be, dropped the strap, drew, took the shots, went back in. That was one where the dot helped, because I was kind of huffing and puffing on it. And I definitely remember, the dot floating towards the bottom of the target. I was like, close enough, good enough, and got the hit on it. So that worked out. I think I only had a couple extra shots. That one executed pretty well for me. So that was a pistol only stage. I think at that point, other than stage 2, you shot pistol, but so a lot of rifle to that point. Stage 5 was a wind sprint stage, so the next bay over, where you just go right around, and they had it was about chest high, like a box that you put your pistol in, like a 3-gun dump box or pickup box. And then they had a VTAC with a rifle kind of platform sled, again, a starter staging spot. And so as soon as you walk up, before they give you the brief, load your carbine, put it down, go to your pistol spot, and that's where you started. And on the pistol spot, they had 4 rectangles, 10-ish yards away. And then on the barricade, they had 4 throoms at maybe 5 to 7 yards. Definitely your height over bore adjustment. And so you can imagine, I had to go back and forth. So you started with pistol, shoot until you need to, get 4 hits, put the pistol on the stand, sprint the 10 yards over to the VTAC, pick up your gun, and then they had 4 spots where you shot out of. So the first one was on top, shoot the 4 throoms, drop it down, go back, shoot pistol, run back, shoot through a square, go back to pistol, go back, and they had like one of the 45-degree slots, go back, and then you finished on rifle at a 90-degree. For me, I knew exactly where I needed to hold on that, so it went really, really fast for me on that on the rifle. The pistol had to reload. I think it was missed a few shots just because you're huffing and puffing on wind sprints, but the rifle worked really, really well for me on that one. I had my dot glowing on kind of the reticle, and in it there's a big post at the 6 o'clock, and at that distance on that size target, it basically filled the gap between the two, and the bullet was hitting right in the middle of that post and that dot. So basically just centered it between those two, and regardless of direction, it was getting hits every time. So that worked out well for me on that. So that was a wind sprint stage, which that match has always had that some kind of like a wind sprint. I remember the very first one, you had to like get 1 hit each. I can't remember how many times. Like it felt like we ran 2 miles running wind sprints, the very first one. So that one wasn't quite as bad, but that was a fun stage as well. Like it was tough, but it wasn't impossible. I mean, so that was good. From there, good.
Oh, I was gonna say I like the sound of this because I enjoy where they have, like you're talking about, a kettlebell or like a drag. And there's nothing against these people, but there's people who are like, they'll walk the whole course, and then they get up there and they shoot, lights out because their heart rate is, super low. And the people that are running then are kind of shooting like garbage. Well, you throw a kettlebell in there, you throw some wind sprints or a sled drag, and now everyone's heart rate's, at 100. So you might as well, you kind of, it levels the playing field a little bit. Yeah. So, and then the people who have good cardio that ran the whole thing, their cardio, their heart rate's going to drop. They're going to shoot it about the same. So, yeah, I love matches when they do that. That really, and it makes it interesting, because that's the point of this is running guns. I think is how well can I do when I'm not in an ideal state.
Yeah, so, it's like, hey, you got a problem on top of all the other stuff you've been dealing with. Here's another one to deal with, and come up with that plan. That's what I like about it. Is it's that. You got what you got. You chose what you're going to bring. You got your wits about you, and go forth and conquer. There's always something to learn from and do with that. And like I did, because they said there'd be a couple longer range stages. I have never really brought a bipod before for a running gun. Tiger's match, the one time I shot it, I brought a whole extra gun for that long range stuff. But for the most part, I never bring one. Like, I don't really need it. I did put in a quick attach one, but I never pulled it out. I looked at, like, they did a good job of not making it where, if you have like a long range gun, it's going to excel. It was a good shooting position, or you had the physicality of movement, or you had to get in a position that would have not, a bipod would have gotten in the way or been a problem. So yeah, you couldn't really game it. You just had to do it. So from there, you had a bit of a run. So the club bought some property a couple years ago, kind of like a expansion, kind of a buffer zone, if you will. So they actually made you run out in that area. And they found this freaking hill that reminded me of when I was hunting in Idaho. Like it was like a flat bottom that you're running, and all of a sudden it went about like this. Now, it wasn't very tall like in Idaho, but it was a grinder on the quads at that point. Maybe 200-ish yards, what felt like straight uphill, and then it had a false summit. You're like, oh, we're right at the top. There's a power line. And then you look at it, it's like, oh, now there's like another, nearly half a mile of it. At least it tapered out, and it was like just moderate uphill, but you still have more hill to go. I don't know if they actually christened that hill anything at that match, but I'm sure a lot of nice words were used. So you get all the way up there, you make it, and then you basically drop down through the woods again, and cross over to close to start finish. And they had some more bays, and they had the last stage, which you get up there, and they're like, they hand you a fake hand grenade, and they say, hey, start with your pistol. If you run out of pistol, you can go to rifle. There's cardboard targets. There's the no shoots. There's penalties for no shoots. Basically, your start is you chuck the hand grenade through a window. That's when they started the timer, which had like a 3-second delay, as in like the delay of the fuse. So the beep goes off, and then you run around the wall, and you just hose everything as fast as you can. I mean, most people shot that like 9 to 12 seconds. I had one little bobble on the malfunction. I think just from running some of the rounds in the mag slid forward on the pistol. So I had to basically do a tap, and it was fine. So it cost me about a second on that, but just a quick burn it down. Like, they're close. I mean, like 3 to 7 yards, a couple at 10 yards, like super close, 2 hits anywhere, not even in a special zone, like just burn it down. And from there, it was 150 yards uphill to the finish line. So just kind of a fun burn what you got at the end.
Wow, sounds like fun. I mean, that sounds like a great, just general 3-gun or run and gun match, which I like. The no special, nothing special, just a good match.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was so Bruce Perry had started the event, and then did it for a few years with his family, and then Joe, Bob, and John, they're also members there and have shot him, done a lot of other run and gun stuff, R-Road, and shot a lot, and so they kind of took over running this year. Bruce's wife, tragically passed actually like the Monday before the match. So they did a great job, stepping up. It was not a surprise. Some stuff was coming health-wise, but they did a great job doing the match. The RO staff was outstanding. It was a lot of the who's who that you see in this kind of East Coast run and gun community running it. So all the stages ran well, good, good calls, good, just everybody pleasant to see and be around. For me, this was kind of my first one back in a couple years. So it was kind of like a family reunion of sorts, but also a lot of new faces. It's like, oh, hey, I mean, Jimmy Nutt coming up, giving you a big hug and stuff like that. And all these other guys, like, I've never seen them before, but they're there and happy and super thrilled. So it's just cool to see that, how fast everything's selling out and people excited to do it and learn, and, kind of all the reasons why we like to do it. The shooting's fun, but the people are what also make it like what make you come back, I think, as much as anything. So it was just they did a great job. Stage, environment. They had a food truck there. One of the guys that shoots, he apparently has a business now where he travels to matches, does a food truck, and shoots the match. Like that's
Is that Jeremy?
JT Hearn. I don't know.
Okay, that's someone different. There's another. I think he's more north.
Gotcha.
Because he shoots some 3-gun. I know he was at Legion last year.
Okay.
Red's Dinner Bell or something like that.
Gotcha.
So glad to hear there's a couple food trucks, because we like to eat. When you put out that much energy, to have some good, greasy food truck food.
Exactly. No, he did. So that was good. They had a band come out while everybody's waiting on results. So it was, like I said, they had kind of a good festival hangout activity. Bruce did come out and get to see the stages and walk it. Having shot his old pistol matches a long time ago, I got to talk to him for a little bit. So talked Uzis and weird machine guns and other stuff. And Matt Stennett was out hanging out with him. He was just there to hang out with Bruce. And so it was cool. It was the community and family environment that kind of what it's become known for.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, me and Mike just got done shooting a night match. And what was cool about it is, ROs shoot Friday night. The main match isn't till Saturday night. So unlike most running guns, like, you're not sleeping all day. I mean, we were up at 10, 11 o'clock, and then you have like this huge chunk of time to just, like, we got to hang out with all these people that we see at matches, and you get to speak for little bits of time, but it was just a whole day of hanging out with your friends. So,
yeah,
It's a great environment. I shot a lot of 3-guns and major 3-gun matches, and they were fun, and there was good people there, but the community was not. Maybe it's because it's so much smaller. It seems more tight knit, and there is really good people at it. So that is one of the best parts about them.
Yeah, I think too. And some of it's kind of a byproduct of the way you compete. More, not that people don't go to, they're not trying to not be competitive, but being that they're blind, they're unknown, like you don't see everybody else, you don't see how everybody's doing until the end. Like it's harder, like with 3-gun or USPSA or even PRS and precision rifle. Like you're there, you're watching everybody, so you get into it. Like I gotta beat that guy. I'm gonna beat that guy, and like, oh, I saw how he did, or there's a stage plan, or oh, what was his win call? Like all those things come in. So I think it's just a byproduct of generally type A people kind of get into competitive shooting and they go type A mode when they're around that. And so it's not like you don't like each other, but it's like, he beat me on something, so I don't want to talk to him right now. Or figure out what he did. But, or you just, I think the mental intensity in the moment of that kind of breeds a little standoffish, especially at your bigger stuff. Your one-day matches, that is hangout. It's practice for most people, or, it's a good time, but you get to the bigger matches, it's like it's game on time. Versus I think run and gun, some of these other stuff that I do that is more that unknown environment, like you don't get that same kind of environment. And I think just, it's a little different personality comes out of it, and it is more of the hangout. And well, how did you solve that problem? I didn't see, it's just totally different, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Mike, you've been quiet over there. You got anything to add or any questions or comments?
So if you had like one recommendation to the match director, what would you like to see in the match? And then if you had one recommendation to a competitor that was going to come to the match, in either prep or kit, what would you say to those two people?
That's a good one. So the first one on the match, like I talked to him afterwards. I thought they did a really good job. It's a mature match, as in like they know what they're doing. It's the 6th year of, I think it's the 6th or 5th or 6th. I don't remember. I think it's 6th. This is my 4th time shooting, and I think there's 2 that I missed. Like everything ran well. Like they knew what they needed to do at the stages. The targets were a good size. The course was pretty well marked. There's one spot where you just follow. They said, if you don't see anything, follow the road. And I kind of get in my head like, I don't see anything. Oh, wait, follow the road. And sure enough, go a little bit further, and there it is. It was a good balance. Like if they wanted to, they could add some more obstacles on that big, run between 3 and 4. But I mean, if they wanted to, but otherwise, how do you police that ultimately? I really thought they did a good job. I will always ask for more shooting. I love to shoot. I do it because I like to shoot, not because I like to run. I'll be honest with you. But for what they offered, it was a little more rifle heavy than in years past, which I liked. Like I said, I really actually don't have much. I thought they just did a really good job and kind of considered all the elements. They did a good use of the facility and some of those new areas. Like I really like that new course. Not that it got kind of stale running on the road, but getting to see terrain. And what's nice is you feel like people that spend time in the woods can push it a little more because they kind of know how to move through it. I think there's some skill that kind of, what are you looking at? What are you seeing? Like how, that was a discussion with a small group, I think, after it was done. Not so much how I did it, but just kind of in general, like, well, how fast do you go in the woods, or how do you plan for that? It's like, made me think about it, like, well, it's kind of as fast as you see, really, right? So if you're running through and all the leaves are down, it's like, what can you see on the ground, or how far ahead, or kind of, oh, can I see the next marker, things like that. That kind of drives me more than like, oh, it's downhill, I should be running it. It's like, well, that's I don't want to run through that right now. I'm going to kind of shuffle. So just a different element to it than, man, I'm on hardball, I need to be pushing it, because there's some PT studs they're going to be pushing on hardball because they're good at it. So yeah, I mean, for the match director, like I said, great job on it. I really don't have anything to add on that. And I told them such, like they really did a good job. On the for a competitor, really for any match, have your stuff zeroed and squared away. Like, there's so much you can do without actually having to shoot. Know where your mags are at, keep them indexed correctly. You can practice a lot of those basic manipulations, loading and unloading the gun, kind of transitions, move, kind of taking a step, bringing to a shoulder, going to a knee, all those things. Don't let some of that be the first time you've seen it. What I like to do for something where they're like, hey, we're going to challenge you, in my mind, that goes to, okay, there's going to be technical aspects involved. So what are technical things? I mean, weak shoulder, which there was here, barricade stuff, which there was. Close range, your height over bore offset. So knowing kind of what those holds are. I did I knew what it was, but I just, I'm just going to go through the double check it. Even if you only fire 3 or 4 rounds, like, yep, still what I thought it was. And know all of that stuff. Like, granted, I shoot a lot of long range. I did not shoot this gun at long range before the match, but I did check and chrono it, ran it through a solver. Like, okay, I have my holds. I did write them down on my arm, and I had my rough rule of thumb, but like, I came in prepared for all of the stuff I thought I would see, and stuff that I thought I might be worried about or haven't done in a while. I kind of like dry fire did, and just kind of went with it from there. And ultimately, probably a lot of people want to do well at competitive stuff. One of the best things that helped me unlock my best performance, if you will, was kind of removing the emotion out of it. Like, oh man, I really want to do well. Or, oh, I know I can, I'm going to burn this down as fast as I can. Or like, it's like, I'm not going to get worried about it. I'm going to do what I know how to do, and just whatever happens, happens. It's like, oh, was that fast? Because you start thinking about, oh man, I'm missing. Well, you're not thinking like, where did the bullet go? Oh, I'm missing high. Like on those when I was resting the suppressor, like, man, I'm holding the same thing. Why do I keep missing this thing? It's like, oh, I'm hitting high. Hold low, dummy. Like, there you go, and send it. Instead of burning a half a mag, and now I'm 2 magazines into what should be a 20-round stage. So, just trying to force yourself to just be objective and do it versus get wrapped up in, like we were talking about, well, how did they do? It doesn't really matter how they did. Just do what you know how to do, figure it out on the fly, and treat it as a learning opportunity. So that's probably like 18 things, but
yeah, no, absolutely,
fast and shoot well and do all these other things, and you'll do just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. The best stages I've ever had, I just focused on seeing the sights, pulling the trigger, doing the next thing, and like you said, not focusing on like, well, I got to go faster here, I got to do this, or I got to do. You really do just kind of have to, Mike's mentioned before that you get in that flow state where you're just doing the things, and it's happening, and you just let them. Every once in a while, you have to think about something. Oh, I got to run to this now, or I'm going to have to reload here. But more often than not, it's just letting it happen.
Yeah, probably the best way, and this really helped me with precision rifle. But after going that and coming back into carbine stuff, the giving the shot the respect it deserves. And so, what does that mean, right? Well, if it's a longer shot, we'll zoom in on your scope. Like, oh, I could probably see it at 2, but maybe you need more magnification. Or, you know what, take that extra second and let that gun settle versus, man, it's wobbling, I'm just going to start shooting and hope it gets lucky. Like, it's a longer shot, slow down, get that shot. But if it's close range, like, turn it to low power and hammer down, or with your pistol, let it eat. Like on that very last stage, like, man, it's full size targets and 2 hits anywhere. Like, literally, it's just a blur, and have fun with it, And so thinking of it in that context, instead of, oh man, it's this, or oh man, it's that, or how do I need to do it? It's like, well, like I said, what do I think I need to do to hit it? Do I need to slow down or speed up, or what, that kind of stuff? That has helped me a lot of kind of planning for it and executing it.
Yeah, and and a lot of that comes with the experience, right? When you first get into it, you rush, try, hurry, you do all the things, and then you've seen, you've been shooting a long time. Me and Mike have been in this for 8 or 9 years. Like, we've seen a lot of the stuff. Even the new things we haven't seen are close to something that we've seen, usually. So once you got that experience, it does seem a little bit easier to just focus on the important things as opposed to when everything's brand new.
Oh yeah, you're looking through a soda straw at the world, and you're way overwhelmed, and your sensors are like, "What's going on?" and this and that. But there is no replacement for that spending time with the gun, and you can do so much with dry fire, and a little bit of practice where don't feel like you're showing up something underprepared if you get some reasonable practice, and then just go and do it and learn from it. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I will say, like, I'm not a shill for it or pimping it, but like the little pads on the gun, like from a run and gun perspective, going back to kind of your question, Mike. But if there's like one piece of gear I ever thought was worth it, was like I said, I started, and then luckily, the run and gun tactics guys started doing these pads. Like, that is something that I think is a kind of a gamer thing for this game. That's like, if you're going to spend the money, it's worth I think they're 50, 60. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Somewhere around that.
Yeah, they are worth it for that stabilizing on those weird shots, things like that. That is something that I think would help somebody quite a bit, because I see a lot on the struggle getting into kind of that position. I think it helps knowing where to put the gun. Like, hey, put the gun in versus trying to rest it on the end of the handguard. Like, okay, put it in on the pad. The pad's going to help you stabilize. It's going to give you a little cushion. So it's kind of a cheater bag a little bit to, like, if you don't quite know what you're looking at, it's okay. It's going to give you a little forgiveness in there. So that is something I think can help, assuming, again, you have known how to use it or see how to use it. But so other than that, like I said, know how to use your stuff. That's probably the biggest thing you see people get caught up in, is, not knowing, or like, oh, they're kind of like lost. Like, what do I do with my hands at this point? Where to put stuff, the dress rehearsal, where do I put my mags? Where do I do this? How do I, ammo management? Like, oh, where do I put my partial or empty mag back in my, like, primary mag pouch? It's like, that's a disaster waiting to happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, me and Mike are big fans of the Steady Shot, Steady Shot. We've got them on our guns, but you know what you're saying. We just shot this night match. I've not done a lot of shooting at night, especially I'm fairly new to night vision, and I went in my basement, flipped all the lights off, put my gear on, and was practicing loading mags, taking them in and out, because getting them in and out of a chest rig when you can't see what you're doing is different. The chest rig I was using has the little bungees.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, that adds a little bit more to get caught. And really, I switched some things around after that, what mags I was taking, and I regretted that a little on the course as I'm like fighting with it. But yeah, just knowing what to expect with that and getting things in and out. I mean, I've taken mags in and out of chest rigs forever, just not in the dark. So that's great advice.
So much of what you do is visual, both what you see when you're shooting and then all your manipulation. And all of a sudden you take that away, or you drastically change it. Night vision, where your focus is off now. Like, I can see far, but I can't see close. Or do you mess with it, or just learn that feel? And it's like trying to load a pistol mag and things like that. It's definitely that's the hard mode. It's like, close your eyes and now do it, kind of stuff.
Yeah, holstering was the one that I was really, really it's like, because I always look it in the holster almost all the time. If I'm holstering, I'm looking it in. You can look under a little bit if you've got some ambient light, but yeah, that I actually dry fired quite a few different ways to get it in the holster, just in case it happened on the clock, and it ended up it did. We had one hot holstering where, there's a lot of times I'll race, getting a hot gun into a holster is not one of them. That's a time where you take your time.
Absolutely.
All right. Mike, anything else before we start wrapping this up?
No. It was a great interview, and I enjoyed learning about that match. I know that's on the list that Ryan and I want to get to one in the future at some point, and probably we'll end up referencing back to this episode specifically in the match prep for it. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience and your knowledge with us. And we're kind of glad that you're getting back into the swing of things with run and gun, just to have you and your experience around the group, and looking forward to seeing you at matches, even if that means I have to shoot against you.
Yeah, no, it's thanks for having me on. It's fun talking about it. yeah, I don't know what the schedule is going to be for me, just with work life and everything else, but hopefully get to 1 or 2 more this year at least, and see where we go from there. So I really want to try a night one. I've got all the stuff to do it. It's always been on a weekend, or I got a work trip, or usually like Ellis on the gun run runs one not too far away, couple-hour drive for me, but it's always on a weekend that there's something for work wise, usually a big trade show or something. So it's like can't get to that one, but yeah, I really want to try a night one. So
yeah, he's still got the night team matches in November, maybe his night team match that he does. I think me and Mike have got plans to go down there as a team and see what we can do.
Nice. Yeah. I also want to get out to Texas. Like I see some of that. That's, some of the, like that West Texas one and some of the others where they got real rifle shooting and the big terrain. Like one day, everybody says one day. So, but yeah, I also want to make it out there. It just looks cool. And obviously kind of where a lot of it got started too. So at some point, maybe we'll make a road trip out West.
Yeah, there we go. Absolutely. Do you have any closing thoughts, or do you got, I know you got some sponsors, anyone you want to thank?
Yeah.
Any of that stuff?
Yeah, no, I've been fortunate, obviously through work, to KGM, suppressor wise. Suppressors right now are red hot. We're kind of coming back into the commercial market, pushing some different stuff, have some new products coming. So excited for that. And then actually my old employer, Night Force, still do shooting for them on the optics side, and Hornady and Proof Research have all been good to me over the years, as have many, many others, whether it's information, tidbits, helps on stuff, etc. Too many people to thank, but if I try to at least pass that along whenever I can. So I've been very spoiled and very lucky along the way, and so thank you to everybody that has.
Absolutely. What's it? The harder I work, the luckier I get. That's the old saying.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap this up. Thanks for coming on, and we'll see you all out in the range.